Good morning, Exiles. I am Ziggy, joined here by none other than Rise QT. How you going this morning, Rise?
What's up, Ziggy? What's up, everybody? It's good to be here, and I'm excited for another round of racing, I want to say, but it's been a long time, so really looking forward to this one.
Apparently we have a little bit of an echo, so we'll just hold up for a second until that's fixed.
I love echo. This is intended.
My favorite. Echo. There we go, folks. First go. It's our first day, okay? It's our first day. Rise, I have to say, you and me, we've been playing Path of Exile for like 10 years, but I think my biggest highlight was casting ExileCon race with you a few years ago. And to be back here in the casting seat with you once again to cast another Act 5 Kitava kill and a new series of races leading up to ExileCon, and then the actual ExileCon race is very, very exciting, mate.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. It is you do say that it's another Act 5 race, but much has changed. And also the qualifiers for the previous ExileCon was a series of different races. We're going to see what is going to be here. Specifically, it will be Act 5 race for everything, but I do think we're going to be seeing a lot of different strategies, so it should be quite different and a lot more technical than it was before, as everybody is focusing on this format specifically.
That's right. This is an Act 5 any percent Kitava kill, which is a little bit different to what some people do for speedruns, which is where they do Labyrinth and all points. And I've been told in some secret interviews that I've been doing with some of the races that this is actually one of the hardest races you can do because you're so under-leveled, you don't have those extra points to play with, you don't have your ascendancy powers and things like that. That any percent just... they try to get to Kitava as soon as possible. Super underleveled, try and kill it as fast as possible. And that's very hard. And the early game of Path of Exile is so much harder nowadays than it was a few years ago.
Absolutely. It's way different. It's way harder. Honestly, this race is going to be a very interesting one because there's a lot of players who didn't even want to participate in this first qualifiers, people that potentially would have an opportunity to win these, but the amount of different strategies that we're going to be seeing here, people just didn't really want to experiment and put in all that time and work to figure out what the best strategy is going to be. These guys that we're going to be watching today did. There's a lot of people who have really jeopardized their life in the previous few weeks in an attempt to become the best and figure out this best strategy. People haven't been really talking to each other besides the scenes. Everybody's been hiding information. I've heard misinformation where one person says that this person's going to be doing that. That person says that they're going to be doing something different. It's going to be really interesting, I think.
Yeah, that's the flavor of today, like secrets. That's the flavor today because this is such a... not only has things changed so much since back in the day with ExileCon, the early game, so much more difficult, a lot of changes there overall, but just recently, this very patch that we're in right now has changed racing in a huge amount of ways. Yeah. And, you know, normally it comes down to sheer practice, but actual technology here and actual strategy could be the trump here because this is the who knows if some strategy is just 5 minutes faster than the best run of some other strategy. So we're going to see a lot of interesting and new things today. And it was very hard trying to finagle any sort of information out of any of the people that I spoke to. And funnily enough, I'm seeing some of the people on the start line now as Rangers when those people that I asked said Templar was the sure thing. So who knows what's going on?
Oh, really? Yeah, see? Because me and Ziggy were talking prior to the race, and I was asking people, but nobody was willing to give me any information. I was, you know, I'm kind of known to leak some info in the past, so nobody was willing to talk to me. Ziggy proudly stated, people talk to him. He has the information. Well, it turns out it was disinformation all along, so we're not kidding when we're saying people were super secretive about this.
I quote one of the races, I shan't mention who, but one of the races says that Templar is the best and it's not even close. And now I see them on a Ranger, so what's going on, man?
We're going to show that screen in just a minute, but yeah, people already were seeing big differences here. So who knows? Maybe people are muling, you know, that is definitely still a strategy. In a short format like this one, you definitely want to save as much time as possible, but there could be some muling going on. So maybe people are, you know, switching it up right now. Maybe they're going to switch right before the race starts. Maybe they already have the character backed up and all that.
Disinformation strategies.
Until the very end. Yes, sir.
Let's see. Well, I think we're all going to be learning live today what are the developing strategies for racing. That's very exciting, but also very nerve-wracking as a caster, because I like to come into a cast with, you know, a fair bit of research under my belt, and I don't know what's true anymore. So Exciting
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
nerve-wracking. But I did want to mention, just for any new players that have joined us in the past few years and haven't seen Path of Exile Racing before, kind of have a little discussion about what's it all about. So other games have your PvP and things like that, and sure, Path of Exile does a little bit of PvP, but it's not super popular. But this is the true competitive scene for Path of Exile, I think, and it's effectively competitive speed running simultaneously done. So, what sort of things do what makes a good racer in Path of Exile, Rise?
Oh man, what doesn't make a good racer? PoE racing is really all about making the fewest mistakes. It's a very complicated thing to do. There's so many things that you have to focus on mechanically. You have to have a really good strategy. Most importantly, out of everything, you have to practice a lot. The amount of time and work that people are putting into these events is incredible. I mean, as an example, the previous ExileCon winner, Ty23, he was literally practicing for months and months and months to make sure that he will be winning that event. And by God, he did. And it was a crushing performance. And I do wonder, maybe we're going to see a little Ty 23 here somewhere in this event. I know a lot of people were hoping that he's going to show up in one way or another, maybe on a secret account. We'll see.
I have, yes, who knows if Ty23, the mystery, such a mysterious player, the legend will return under some pseudonym or something like that. Will we even know if that happens? Well, if someone is extremely fast, then maybe we might have our suspicions. But for those of you who weren't at the previous ExileCon or didn't see that race, you should go back and watch it. It's a lot of fun. But Ty23 was the winner of the previous ExileCon race. We may have some people joining us today who were also at that ExileCon race, such as Havoc and Killer as well. So we should get to see some fun from them too here as well.
Oh yeah, some newcomers as well. Exile, a person that didn't even play Path of Exile at that point. He started playing in Metamorph, which was the very first league after ExileCon, and he's known to be one of the top contenders right now for PoE racing, both short and long format. He has very strongly said in the past, or recently anyway, that PoE racing currently is in its most difficult state. This is by far the highest skill ceiling that anybody could ever reach in PoE racing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if he's going to be able to perform here.
It's awesome to see some relative newcomers seem to be so formidable to get specific mentions from people who've been racing for quite a long time. And there's a few more of those as well, like Alex Pleblord is a name that I've been hearing thrown around as someone who's been really practicing, really grinding out a ton of practice and getting a lot better and looking to be quite formidable too. As well as we have some of the old classics that have been around for a while. So a nice mixed bag today, potentially.
For sure, for sure. I mean, players like Keldorn, I think a lot of this race is going to boil down to familiarity with like this top new playstyle potentially, because we really don't know. Maybe it's still going to be spells, maybe it's going to be bow, but yeah, a player that would stand out among in the past bow users would be Keldorn, somebody that had a nice rivalry with Killer in recent times. You know, there's also a big rivalry between and Havoc, so I think there's a lot of pressure on Killer right now to perform a very well-known name in the PoE racing community. You know, is already in maps and such. So I'm really looking forward to seeing whether or not he's going to be able to perform on this live stage, you know, because he's been known to kind of choke a little bit in the past. So
wow.
I'm really really rooting for my boy here.
I have a quote from Killer, actually. I think he's feeling very confident, Rise. He said he feels like he has this in the bag unless, and his biggest fear, he said, was that either Ty23 or Havoc have been monk mode meditating on top of a mountain somewhere and will just swoop in like the good old days and steal it from him. So we'll see.
I think it's super interesting that he mentions Havoc specifically because, you know, again, that is a big rivalry that they've had in recent times. There's been some arguing between them back and forth, but to see that respect is still there and he knows that Havoc is formidable really shows true character from Killer.
We're going to head on over to the races now and start introducing some of our starting line races and maybe get a little preview of what classes they're going to be playing. So we'll switch on over there as we continue our discussion. But I really had no idea what to expect, but I had some very firm opinions that we would be seeing Templars. And we look at this starting scene just here, and well, I don't see any Templars at the moment. Oh, wait, do I see a Templar there? That could be a mule then.
No, that's just Tai Killer. It's the new character model for the Templar in PoE 2.
I see. I did see
I do.
a pair of characters for I'm Exile. So let's talk. We got the characters on screen at the moment. We have Tai Killer in the top left, I'm Exile in the top right. In the bottom left, we have Khan, and in the bottom right, we have Havoc. Definitely some names you should know. As we mentioned, Exile, a relative newcomer, but a force to be reckoned with potentially here.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. We're definitely going to be switching out players. Just make sure to keep note of that. Sometimes the names in the bottom left are going to be changing, and those players are going to be switched out depending on, well, how well they're performing for our entertainment. If somebody's not doing well enough, we're going to switch them out. If players die, there is a 1-minute penalty, and in that case, we're definitely not going to be, waiting around and watching what they're doing. It is a pretty big penalty, though, because not only is it a 1-minute penalty where you have to stand around, you're also, I believe, forced to respawn in town. So that will definitely take a lot of time away, depending on the location that you're going to die on.
Yeah, that's it. It is not a hardcore race specifically, so people can play a little bit more riskily, but losing a minute of having to stand still and potentially more if you have a big run back, that is a big problem. So you will see people play a little bit more conservatively. I think potentially in this first race as well. I imagine like the last qualifier, people might take bigger risks potentially. But right now, people are still probably settling into their new strategies. They've been practicing for what, a week or two now. But before that, this isn't. Maybe it's gonna be. This is gonna be raw, Rise. I think this is gonna be raw.
Oh yeah, I absolutely think so. And yeah, I think what you mentioned definitely holds true. That people might go a little bit more aggressively. It's kind of one of those things where if this were to be a hardcore race, we know the trash can strategy from Ty23. He doesn't need a record. He doesn't need to beat the other player by 5 minutes. He just needs to win this race. And I think that that's probably not going to be the strategy implemented for a lot of these players here, especially players like Tai Killer and Havoc are known to go for these records, known to want to outperform everybody by a significant margin. We'll see if they're going to be taking these extra risks, considering that, a 1-minute penalty is brutal, but if you can make up for that time by taking risks, it's probably going to pay off in a competent player's hands, even if you do die every now and then.
We have some last minute swapping around. I'm not sure what's going on there, but Havoc just swapped over to a Templar. We did have some duelists there as well. I'm very curious what we're actually going to see here. The characters getting deleted. I think it was some misdirection, Rise, what we were talking about. The duelist was deleted just now on Havoc's screen. What is going on?
Yeah. It's interesting. Again, I do think that Karn is definitely going for his comfort pick with the duelist, but he has been practicing an insane amount, apparently. So if he thinks that this is the best strategy, it might just pay off. Predominantly, I have heard that spells, despite the changes, still might be the best strat. But we've got 2 Rangers at the top, and I don't. Well, they might be going spells. Who knows? Ranger does have access to some spells.
That's true. We'll be starting in 2 minutes here, but yeah, I heard that Templar was the best, not even close. It's got spells and access to Leap Slam, so the technology seems like it'll probably be Leap Slam, Frostblink, maybe Flame Dash. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to see in terms of movement skill package. I was rewatching the old ExileCon race, and that was in the heyday of Smoke Mine action, and I don't think we'll be seeing any of that, so who knows what skills we're even going to see here. I have no idea.
Yeah, and vendoring is completely different. A lot of people moved away from the caster playstyle because of those recent vendor recipe changes. But the implicits on wands now do have flat spell damage, so you can get a very good weapon, but if you're going for a specific playstyle, maybe some kind of ignite setup, you're going to run into some problems because the first implicit ignite wand, I believe, is level 3 or 6, and the next one's like 30-something. So that's not exactly a point that players are going to reach. And also, yeah, you do need to be leap slamming, so a scepter is just really, really powerful, even without that recipe.
Something I want to keep an eye out for on the Templars in particular is some weird, different melee weapon dual-wielding strategies. I did get some little sneaky insights about some secret tech there, and I wonder if that's something that Havoc is going to be playing with, potentially. So maybe I'll talk more about that a little bit later on, if we do indeed see that come into play. But the races are on the marks, and we are off. The countdown has ended, and the players begin their zombie kills. So we've got two rangers, a duelist and Templar Rise.
Yeah, right, exactly. There's no more disinformation. This is it. And there's a pretty big variance among these players. Again, these are probably some of the crowd's favorites, but there are other players who are definitely viable for the #1 spot in this first initial race. And already with this amount of variance, I really wonder where everybody's going to land. I wonder if anybody's going to be muling. I mean, Havok's starting off with a Templar specifically?
Well, Onslaught's just not a thing anymore, and that used to be the classic, was you would mule a character for Onslaught to take over to your main character for that movement speed, that attacking, that cast speed, but that's just not a thing anymore. Instead, Ranger has the new Momentum gem, which people are divided on. It's definitely not as good as Onslaught. It is.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's people divided or if it's people versus GGG on whether or not that gem is actually useful for anything. Oh, movement speed boots are ready for Havok. That's going to be huge. That 10% movement speed from the get-go makes a really big difference. It does make socketing a little bit more difficult, but those are going to be the sort of items that we're going to be looking out for. And we're going to make a little bit maybe of a more basic commentary on these things for anybody who hasn't been really following racing for a long time. But yeah, players are going to be focusing on sockets early on. Act 1, they might be sacrificing a lot of time just to make sure that they've got their 3-link. They got all of their setups that they're going to need for the future. They're picking up all items. They need scraps. They need wisdom scrolls. Transmutes are incredibly important because you're just buying out so many gems right now. So blue items are super duper valuable. And really, inventory management in Act 1 is key. But in this new Path of Exile, at the same time, you have to stay alive. And as players enter mudflats, I'm sure many of us are familiar with how dangerous this zone can be. And you really can't afford to die here at all for any of these players in this early stage of the game.
Yeah, that Act 1 action is far more threatening than it used to be a few years ago, I'll tell you what. But we did indeed see some muling. So Tata-Killer, Exile went through the vendors, stashed some things from their ranges, and now are swapping over to Templars. So that Templar action is coming out. I think we might have had a little bit of technical issues with Khan there. I'm not quite sure. I missed specifically what happened. But Tata-Killer and Exile have re-rolled as their Templars now. So we'll see what they took off the Ranger and what sort of a difference that's going to make for them.
Right, yeah, and when it comes to muling also, it does ensure that you've got a very steady strategy. You do have that influx of different vendor items that you can potentially buy, and you do have 3 additional wisdom scrolls, and that might not seem like a lot for an endgame player, but it sure as hell is a lot for these early stages of the game.
So what we see in the vendors there for our different players is them using a search string, a text line that allows them to search for things like runners, so movement speed boots, but also the sockets they're looking for, any other items that they might be looking for their particular strategies here. So I'm really not sure what the Ranger Mule has to say here for our Templars, but we see some bows in the inventories, and I don't know what they're planning to do with those. What is going on?
Yeah, I do really wonder, you know, there are still a lot of skips currently in Path of Exile. Maybe people are setting up for some bow usage for some big skips that used to be utilized in the past. Things that you really can't do with Leap Slam anymore, such as in Act 4 and maybe some skipping in Act 3 as well. So it might give you an opportunity to really speed yourself up, potentially if you're going for maybe a Blink Arrow weapon swap.
Yeah, it looks like what we're seeing here is Exile put Momentum in his helmet with a green and red sockets. That's a Leap Slam setup right there. So it looks like it's Momentum Leap Slam. Is significant enough to mule a Ranger for, because don't forget, you know, while you're getting some good stuff off that character, it did take you a couple of minutes to actually mule, like, you know, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes to actually make that character and then just to delete them. So I think that's what we're getting set up for here, which does lead into what I had been finding out of my research, thankfully vindicated, that we're going to see some Templar action, and that it's going to be some leap slamming spellcasting Templars. That said, we do have Khan on the Duelist, though, which is very cool to see.
Yeah, Khan's still on the Duelist. Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm sure Karn is already incredibly frustrated as the servers are unfortunately having some issues. Being a European player as well, that's going to be a big problem. Definitely, those longer loading screens when you're based off of Europe is going to be an issue. And as I say that, Karn is timing out. I'm almost happy that we don't have audio for him here.
Yeah, that's going to be very upsetting and unfortunate. And that is just the nature of the online game, unfortunately. Technical issues do happen from time to time. Unfortunate timing, indeed. Just like the unfortunate timing of me getting a cold the other day. I do apologize for my scratchy voice today. But there was no way I was missing this racecast with you guys unless, you know, I was on my deathbed.
I think you sound tremendous, Ziggy.
Right, thanks. I appreciate it.
Great. I'm sure you feel great too.
I'm the excitement, the racing, the PoE sports enthusiasm is overriding any issues there.
The adrenaline. And I gotta say, speaking of adrenaline, I mean, I've been watching Exile. I've been focusing on him a lot. And, you know, his cursor's a little shaky. I can see some faulty movement when it comes to these layout reads. And he's a little bit behind. I mean, Havok's already in the ledge. Keep in mind, he did not mule. But, you know, that's going to take a long time to catch up. Will that muling strategy really be worth it? Also, another thing important to mention, I think, for this format that we haven't really talked about is the fact that it's fixed seed. Everybody actually has the exact same layout. However, the mobs and the items are different. They are still randomized, but good layout knowledge can make a giant difference, as we've seen in previous races, especially the one at ExileCon. Layout reads really, and preparing especially for those big skips, really determined much of that race. So preparation really came in handy.
Yeah, that's one of the core racing skills that you'll see, is the players somehow look like they know where they need to go. And, you know, all of us at some point learn some of the little tricks, like, you know, which side to go for. You go for the cart side on the, you know, in the piety zone and things like that. We learn some of these little things. Oh, there's some little stacked stones on ledge and so on. These racers learn the tricks for every zone. They learn all of the possible layouts and how to read them. And even the best players will still make some mistakes on that, potentially losing like 30 seconds if they end up going the wrong way. And yeah, recently we were watching the ExileCon race. Even the, you know, the best racer of the day, Die 23, made a couple of big layout errors that put him behind a minute or two.
Yeah, absolutely. And really now will make a huge difference as Exile actually drops a transmute. Again, super duper valuable. You really want to be picking up everything that you can this early on. And a transmute specifically prior to Brutus might really come in handy. Havok running around with a Brutal Shrine, doing okay, but other players are already catching up.
So we're starting to see some skill setup taking shape here. So we've had Magma Orbs, a solid starter skill. We've got some Flame Wall to add damage to any projectile skills. That includes Magma Orb and also the Flame Totem as well, which we see on Killer and Havok. But we don't see the totem on Exile, it looks like, for whatever reason. Maybe I don't know if it doesn't have the socket for it currently.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Maybe he's even lacking Wisdom Scrolls again. Everything really makes a big difference here. Those Wisdom Scrolls will come in handy. I'm trying to see if the #1 player that just entered the prison is Havok. I'm actually not sure. I'm currently looking at the ladder behind the scenes. We will be showing you guys the ladder later on. But Keldorn is actually #1. And I think that with the unfortunate condition that has befallen Karn being European, we might be switching out to see a little bit more of Keldorn, a really prominent racer in recent times, and somebody who's been putting in the work for a very long time now. And really, it's beginning to show results. So let's take a look.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at a few different races, see what sort of strategies are coming to play here. So it looks like for Keldorn in the bottom left now, we have a similar setup with the Templar, with the Magma Orb, the Frostblink currently, Flame Wall, and the Flame Totems. So a solid leveling setup for all of you, really, if you're looking to do some spellcasting leveling. A classic setup, really. Very not race specific.
Oh, yeah.
I was having a little bit of issues in the climb with some of the goats there, but manages to dodge a blue pack of goats and picks up a lot of XP from there as well.
Yeah, there tends to be a really high variance in times at this point in the game. Again, because those early zones are so dangerous in modern Path of Exile, the players will be taking extra time to make sure they don't die, but also make sure that they farm out these levels. They have to be an appropriate level to deal with Brutus in the correct way. You're not doing any extra zones, you're not getting skill points, and at a certain point, you're probably going to be killing Kitava 10, 12, maybe 15 levels under the zone. So they gotta
Oh,
make
yeah.
sure that everything that they need, they're getting right now.
We're coming up on some Brutus fights for Keldorn and Havoc. I do need to make sure that my streams aren't too delayed, because that's the other thing we might see is sometimes streams having a little bit more of a delay on them than others. But from what I'm seeing, Keldorn is just ever so slightly ahead of Havoc in the run to Brutus, and Brutus is a little scarier these days. I don't know, how do you feel about the new Brutus compared to the old Brutus? Because he's quite different.
Yeah, he's very, very tricky in the way that you're supposed to be maximizing damage output on him. I mean, you can tell that Keldorn's really dealing with him quickly.
Yeah.
Havoc having a pretty decent time too. Both players utilizing that Ignite Magma Orb strategy, trying to place Flame Walls in front to get the extra damage, and Keldorn will be the first player to take down Brutus. An incredible job by him. But yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Brutus used to be very, very dangerous, and much of his kill was dependent on where you would position him. But now that he's out of his cage, you really don't need to focus as much on surviving if you're a competent player, but maximizing damage is really key here. And both players having really good mechanics, it's going to be hard to catch up to them already.
Yeah, it looks like the Totem Flame Wall tech in particular makes these Brutus kills a lot more safer. We don't see the players dancing on top of Brutus as much with the Frostblink, although Taitakil is still leveraging that classic strategy, which was to use even your Frostblink during the fight to slow and damage Brutus, and he does get a very clean kill there as well. So confident kills, confident Brutus kills for everyone there. Looking very clean. I'm Exile up next. And a bit of a misplace on his totem and his flame wall there, not really leveraging the full damage, because you want that flame wall to be on Brutus, as well as your projectiles to be firing through it at the same time. So as a result, his kill taking a little bit longer there.
And even additionally, you can see that he's hovering over the boss, but really what you want to be doing with Magma Orb is clicking a little bit in front of the boss. Depending on the hitbox, your Magma Orb will be hitting twice, and that little bit makes a big difference. If your movement skills hitting the boss makes a big difference, things like that will make a huge difference. And especially later on when we're going to be seeing players using potentially maybe Flame Dash in some situations, I think it's going to be primarily Frostblink, as we do already see those level 10 players leaping around.
Yeah,
but if there are things like Flame Dash, they do a lot of damage.
Rise, I'm so excited because you were saying none of them were talking to you, and I did some research and I found some secret tech, and I'm super excited that we might be getting to see it here. So obviously Leap Slam is very fast, and I didn't know about the momentum with it, but momentum basically acts like a little faster attacks. But some Leap Slamming, Frost Blinking to animation cancel the Leap Slam, but also I suspect we might even see spellcasting with an axe and a sword, which is pretty wild. Obviously, you can just swap.
Excuse me?
But later on, there's some. I'll show you. Okay, so there's some secret tech that I've heard about. Let me bring something up here for you.
Okay.
So take a look at this on the screen right now. This dual wielding mastery between Templar and Witch is all attack and cast speed, exactly what you want for spellcasting and leap slamming together, but also 60% increased damage when wielding two different weapon types, like for example a sword and an axe, or maybe potentially an axe and a scepter. Going for a high attack speed setup for Leap Slam, but also taking advantage of that extra damage there. So we have some interesting. I'd heard some rumblings about this, and I'm very.
I think
excited
we already
might
see
be
it.
to see it.
I think Exile's already using a sword, right?
Yeah,
sword and axe.
We've got sword and axe setups on each of these Templars here.
Besides Havoc, Havoc's the only one. I believe one of his weapons is not a scepter. I do see one scepter. We can't.
Yeah, it makes sense to
be honest.
potentially,
I don't know
like,
who I'm asking.
Put in the scepter if you can to get a little bit of extra damage there potentially, and you can still leap slam with the scepter obviously. So that potentially is ideal. Maybe just not quite as fast. I think the sword and axe is the fastest setup, but we see Keldon and Havoc taking on Piety. Not Piety. Merveil here now as well. Same strategy as Brutus. Place that flame wall. Place that totem and try and shoot through that flame wall whilst keeping it on top of the boss. A little trickier for her, 'cause she likes to move around, doesn't she?
Oh yeah, She definitely likes to move around a lot. Keldorn dropping a little bit low. His potions aren't doing too great. You can see the 4 potion strat from Exile. An accident? I don't believe so. We all know that 5th flask is going to slow you down. Exile doesn't want to take that risk. And with that, despite the mule, he's catching up. But Keldorn still in the lead, fighting Mervo right now. A tricky fight. You really are very, very... You're not under-geared because you're trying to maximize damage, but you don't have a whole lot of defenses. And Keldorn will deal with the fight expertly, taking Mervo down as, I believe, the first person to do so.
Some rare boots there as well. Some potential for him. Oh, didn't see if it had movement speed or not.
I'm sure we're going to find out soon. We will be looking at gear a little bit later on. Again, much is changing in this Act 1. Everybody's switching gear around. Everybody's trying to maximize their gear just so they can go fast later on. Ooh, a lot of Quartz Scepters for Havoc. Potentially, with some extra damage, you still can get a substantial amount of flat damage to spells. You can go for some... I don't know, some weapon swap with another weapon swap, even more weapon swaps to maximize single target damage.
That sort of thing. You could always weapon swap over to a higher damage setup potentially. So we'll see. But right now, yeah, he's rocking that axe and that scepter, which I like that for splitting the difference and potentially keeping a little bit of extra damage while still having the mobility, but maybe not as fast as the other setups. But yeah, a little bit of a longer kill there for Havoc on his Merveil. Sometimes she can just teleport around a bit too much. You get all your things down, you place your flame wall and your totem, and she's on the other side of the room.
Yeah, and I think you can already see maybe a little bit of frustration from Havoc. You could check that he was actually watching the vendors yet again, really in Act 2 already. You want to live by the motto that town is lava. You really don't want to be there for any amount of time. And the more you check those vendors, the more it's going to slow you down. Never want to go back to Act 1 or anything like that. The typical strategy of leaving a portal by the den and then going to Crossroads, catching the waypoint, and going back will be utilized by everybody besides Keldorn and Exile. So even half of them aren't utilizing it. Interesting. Are they not going for the second Quicksilver? Is the movement strategy really that powerful?
I guess if you're leap slamming everywhere, that movement speed might not make all that much difference. You can leap slam constantly. There's no cooldown on that. Now, another thing to point out here, and there's always been some variant of this strategy, but you'll see effectively it look like they're frost blinking right as before they even hit the ground when they're leap slamming, and that's effectively you can use your travel skills a couple times and then frost blink whenever it's off cooldown, and well timed you can effectively animation skip the end of the leap slam and go straight into your next one, so it's substantially faster. You'll see these players sometimes just basically teleport across the screen. Not quite as fast as the old smoke mine, I don't think, though.
A huge blunder by Havoc. How unusual from a player of his magnitude to get lost in the den. Oh, yeah. That is very surprising. This is a very old layout, and Havoc just cost himself a lot of time by getting lost in a zone that really only has 2 or 3 layouts that you need to worry about. Kind of tricky. Maybe nerves showing? I'm sure the Havoc practiced a lot. I'm not sure how committed he is to winning this first race, but... Sorry?
It said it happens to the best of us, and it happens to me every time.
Yeah, I mean, it happens to the best of us, but I really rarely ever see Havoc mess up on layouts. He is kind of a well-rounded beast in the sense that, yeah, in racing, he doesn't have a whole lot of faults, and if he does find something that he's not dealing well with, he fixes it immediately. And at this point, he's pretty insane.
So it looks like we saw everyone opt for going right in Act 2 first, and that, I think, gets you to Chamber of Sins and gets your, like you said, the second Quicksilver, but also your extra damage from the Heralds and whatnot from that quest reward, which is a pretty big deal to get that first. So looks like we're seeing people pick up Herald of Ash, so we're probably going to be seeing people stick with the fire skills then.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, a very good strategy. Level 16 is probably going to be the biggest tell as to what kind of abilities people are going to continue to use. I'm not sure if they're actually just going to stick with Magma Orb. It is a very good AoE clearing skill, and the reason why Magma Orb in the past wasn't as utilized was because of Onslaught. Because if you killed something with an Ignite, then you wouldn't get Onslaught. So it did decrease
Oh.
that consistency as it needed to be with a kill. But now that nobody really has to worry about Onslaught, they can utilize the setup, and it's proving to be very, very effective, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like, it's a difficult skill to get the feeling for, I will say. It needs a lot of practice, I think, to really comfortably use it, to judge those bounces, to judge where to aim it, not shoot over the mobs' heads and things like that. But yeah, it looks like we'll be seeing people stick with Magma Orb and then possibly swapping to something like Armageddon Brand or Cremation or something later on at the higher levels. That's if they even that's if they even get high enough levels for those.
Yep.
Depending on how lower level people rush through, it could be a very late swap.
Yeah, but even at this stage of the game, getting those early kills on mobs throughout zones, because players are switching zones so frequently, it's very important that you juice up your banner, because that's going to give you a lot of damage. You can see it on Keldor's screen, who's fighting Weaver right now. He has 33 stacks, and he will be placing the banner to try and maximize his damage in a short burst. But I gotta say, these aren't the sort of numbers that we've been seeing previously. These bosses are not dying nearly as quickly as they did those couple years ago at ExileCon, and that will definitely increase the difficulty of itemization, and even, you know, potentially might kill some players. We haven't seen anybody die yet, and Act 1 tends to be kind of the most dangerous act, so I really wonder if they're gonna keep that up here as Exile drops low in the top right, getting pinned down by a bunch of blue mobs. But fortunately, Weaver wasn't there to finish him off.
Those ads in this Weaver fight now are so much scarier than they used to be, and this Weaver fight in general is far more dangerous. I remember in ExileCon race, we were talking about whether the players would insta-phase without having Weaver duck up into the roof. That's not even on the cards anymore. No chance.
Yep, that's... I mean, potentially, I really don't know. There's still a lot of those old setups exist. Many skills have been nerfed, but you know, there's a lot of new ones here still. No more Lightning Spire Trap, I don't believe, but you know, I have seen some combinations of players leveling with Flamethrower and Lightning Spire Trap, and that actually seemed to prove to be quite good. Maybe we're going to be seeing some Cremation. I really don't know.
Yeah, that'll be cool to see. Pretty nice kill there from Killer though. Didn't struggle too much, and Havoc is up next. Falling a little bit behind from his earlier lead, possibly due to some of that sidetracking in some of the zones.
Yeah, and Act 2 tends to be a little bit tricky. A big reason why Act 2 tends to be such a complicated act altogether for players is because XP management is a big part of it. Again, we do have the same layouts for all of the players, but we don't have the same mobs. You're not seeing the same blue mobs. You're not seeing the same items. And you tend to switch zones and go to different zones depending on the amount of XP that you're getting, because you really want to be maximizing that. And we're also going to be seeing that Killer is killing Oak, which is taking a substantial amount of time. Many players know that Oak, in fact, is healing.
Yep.
And that makes it so that it takes a long time. But Keldorn will be killing Alira as well. Hold on, didn't he just kill Oak? And he's killing Alira. Interesting.
Going for a kill.
Not saving himself the time. Yeah, not saving himself the time on that kill. If you just click help, you don't gotta fight the boss, but you do lose those 2 skill points. You do get a substantial amount of resistances, but who needs those when you don't get hit?
Yeah, it really depends on a few factors, the decisions with the with these bandits here, because they have to consider what exactly they're trying to reach on their passive skill tree. This will be planned out to the point, with the plan to get to Kitava at a certain level, and whether those 2 passives make the difference between getting another mastery or something like that. That could be a really big difference. But like you said, helping Oak can save you a lot of time, and helping Alira is also not a bad choice in terms of her stats as well. Makes for a bit of a safer one.
Creighton is also not a bad call. You get cast speed, you get movement speed in a short format like this. We've already mentioned it, but you know, 6% movement speed is a substantial amount. Players will frequently not use a chest piece because it just speeds them up. I believe Killer still is not using a chest piece. He's not willing to sacrifice that 3% movement speed penalty. But the game is much trickier, you know. From the last time that we did these races at ExileCon, Much has changed. You no longer have the base 50 evasion. You are a lot more gear dependent to really stay alive. If you have evasion, if you have armor, if you're preventing damage, maybe you're also preventing stuns if you have any amount of energy shield present. All of these things not only will help you to not die, but they might actually just speed you up. You don't care about a movement speed penalty if you're efficiently using your leap slam.
Yeah, that's it. Still, I was somewhere around here, I believe, that Titacula got his tabular drop. I reckon if that happens again, we might just see Titacula just walk straight past it.
I think Tite helped Keldor. He helped Creighton.
He helped Keldon. Interesting strategy.
They're in cahoots.
I think we just saw a nice little attack speed axe there for Titacula, so it looks like keeping that for the leap slamming. Very nice.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I'm seeing here. I mean, again, many players have mentioned that this is this highest skill cap there's ever been in racing, and already you can see with inventory management, there's just so many things that you have to pay attention to. There's so many items that you have to constantly check, and anytime you're picking up an item, you gotta walk over there, you gotta click it, you gotta check it in your inventory, you gotta make sure that you're still moving while doing all these things. It's complicated, it's tricky.
Yeah, when you're also trying to read zone layouts without getting lost and time your movement skills so that they're going end to end and skipping animations and whatnot. It's very tough to do that all at once, but you see the racers who have really practiced be very confident in their mouse movements and have their mouse cursor in the correct location, like when they open their passive skill tree and things like that. And all of this shaves those seconds off.
Yeah, and all while having to really take into account the amount of XP that you're going to be needing. You can see on Keldorn's screen that he even went back to talk to Einhar so that Einhar is going to help him with kills. In a zone like Northern Forest, it's going to be very important. It's probably the best XP zone in the entirety of Act 2, so you really want to make sure that at this point, you've got everything figured out. And as he enters the next zone, he just hit level 19, and that's going to be perfect. His XP management is on point, and he's first in progression, I think. I mean, Exile's close, but not quite first.
Yeah, they're both looking pretty close to me as they head through the caverns there pretty confidently. And it is interesting, like you said, we saw a little bit of a disparity in the strategies here with Titacula and Havoc having those two Quicksilvers, and I don't really know if it was worth the extra time to do. I mean, most of the time we see them leap slamming and frost blinking. There's barely any actually running. There's no cooldowns on that leap slam for you to run to actually use that Quicksilver. And I look at Titacula and he's just blasting his Quicksilver charges while not running, and I'm wondering if that was worth it at all.
Yeah, I do think that probably it's going to depend. Maybe this is going to be something that's going to reduce RNG in future acts as well, because, you know, these zones, the movement isn't that complicated, but it gets really tricky in some of those more annoying zones with just a lot of trees, a lot of obstacles, and leap slamming becomes a lot more difficult. Something that Exile was really known for in the past was that he just would have perfect movement. And even if you pay attention to his screen right now, his movement, he never gets stuck on obstacles. He never really seems to misclick. He's just so quick. And I think that's been showing that it's been very effective as Havoc is getting through Northern Forest now. So I do wonder, I mean, Havoc at this point really doesn't want to be behind, because if you think back, he didn't mule, right? So already if players did mule, they've got access to more resources, they've got everything that they wanted from the Ranger, and Havoc's already behind. That might show a flaw in his strategy.
Yeah, that's it. Like, that difference with the leap slam speed might just slowly make a difference, adding up and accruing over the course of the entire race. Like we see Titacula's just being ever so slightly faster. And whether it's worth muling, well, we can only assume that the players have practiced and timed their runs and figured that, yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah, and we're really starting to see those differences. We wanted to full screen some players for you guys, wanted to show that, you know, how a fight should really go. But Keldor and Exile are neck and neck. They're both fighting Vol right now, trying to maximize the damage on him. You really want to be not killing all the ads. You do want to keep them around, but they are important for potions. Players aren't going to be dying unless they're shocked for 44%, like on Keldor's screen. Keldor, no flasks. Only one life left, 50% shock, has to TP out. Fortunately, he did have that TP, but that's going to cost him a lot of time. That was super close.
Yep, stray rock after those big old lightning slaps is definitely a concern for Keldon there.
And look how big of a difference it is. Exile's already done with his vault. That little blunder with trying to maximize your ad uptime for flasks ended up costing him all of his flasks, and he had to TP out. Look how much longer this fight is taking. Exile's already mapping.
He's in maps. Meanwhile, Tata Killer has caught up and is halfway through his Val kill as well, so closing the gap a little bit there. And Keldon gets through his Val kill.
Yeah, Keldon, and I mean, things like this, you know, they inflict big psychological damage, right? Like, I do remember still to this day when Ty23 was talking about his ExileCon race, he was mentioning that one time he misclicked a transmute in Act 1, and it was a very difficult moment for him. It gave him a very hard time. And, you know, that might be something to giggle about for sure. But simultaneously, it does make a difference, you know? And these guys, they really practice so much that any amount of time lost, you know, it just might tilt you for the rest of the race. It might be showing for Havoc after that failed Dan Reed.
Yeah, and he had that early lead, but has definitely fallen behind a bit now. And Keldon, while was neck and neck with Exile after that Val kill, is a zone behind now. Exile is already in the slums.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And so far has had a clean run through the slums.
Yeah, and a pretty long slums too. Slums really only has 2 layouts, and they're very easy to tell, because pretty much you can only go left and up or right and up. There's one layout that's bottom, but you've got an easy read. But depending on the corrupted zone, that zone might be pretty long. So despite the fact that Exile had a very good read, he went directly to the entrance to cremation. He did have that Vol zone, and the Vol zone definitely extended his layout. So I don't think that's going to be avoidable for this race. But if you were to misread another zone, since the players all have the same layout, that might be a big time sink for some of these guys here.
Havoc having a very difficult Val kill, a few zaps to the face, and just a generally long fight. Sometimes things don't play out quite so well, and the vacuum cleaner goes underground when you don't want them to, and Havoc's fight definitely lingered a bit too long. You got a nice little build out of it, at least.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, these differences will stack up. And I mean, we're already pretty deep. Players might seem like, oh, you know, Act 3, we're still got a long way away from Act 5. It's been 30 minutes, guys. Like, they're already in Act 3. They're already blasting. Even when you think to back in the good old days, people would get like a 40-minute Vol kill, and that would be incredibly respectable. But here, 30-minute Vol kills are just part of the competition for these players, and I think that's pretty incredible.
Mate, I'm still coming up with my character name at this point. 30 minutes in.
Oh, yeah. For sure. A tricky zone coming up, the sewers, and Exile will be the first person to enter the sewers. We've seen that Keldon was shocked for 50%. Again, players aren't really focusing on defensive gear. They're trying to not get hit. They're taking these risks. And zones such as sewers with those big ol' lightning dischargers will definitely lead to a one-shot on somebody if you mishandle the charges on the mobs. Players tend to not care, but if you do kill mobs around the discharging mobs, they will get charges, and they will one-shot you if you're missing lightning resistance. So let's see how much killing any of these guys are really going to be doing here. I don't think a whole lot outside of those blue packs, which is always a big focus. You want to be skipping rares unless you've got a ton of damage. You want to be killing big white packs, but most importantly, big blue packs is what you want to be focusing on.
Yeah, and that's something we haven't even mentioned. While Arch Nemesis is no longer in the game, the after effects of Arch Nemesis are still being felt. When I was asking some of the races about some of the various changes, that was mentioned. Like, with all these fire strategies, you run into one of those ignite resistant or fire resistant mobs, and that's just unkillable at this point. It's something you can deal with later in the game. You have curses, you have penetration, things like that. But in the early game here, that monster is just unkillable. Some regen rare, skip it. So we'll see a lot more rare skipping potentially than we did in the past. But knowing which rares you can take out, that's different. And if an Exile, we've got Tata Killer there picking up a essence there as well. But that's not an easy fight. Is he going to go for it? No, he cracks the essence, but sees that the rare is just not worth the time. Too hard. He actually has to skip it, even though he made that conscious decision to crack it and try and see.
Yeah, that's something that's been a very tricky part of racing in the past, because you really needed those essences to craft your weapons. And now there's a big amount of RNG when it comes to what you can get out of the essences, so you no longer use it for the recipe. But, you know, if you can risk your character, it might pay off with a big defensive item or a lot of damage for your weapon now specifically.
I doesn't even try on that essence. Just skips straight past it.
Rare boots. Oh, rare boots for Exile, but no movement speed. At this point of the game already, 4 links are coming into play. As soon as you're level 23, you can even drop a 4 link, I believe, in the Ancient Pyramid. So anybody who's going to be getting a 4 link here might be getting a substantial damage boost. And probably these players aren't really going to get a higher level than 28. I think is about the time when they're going to be stopping, depending on whether or not they actually want to utilize one of the level 28 skills to kill Kitava.
Exactly. That's we'll have to see how that plays out. But you were mentioning about links, and that's a big one as well. That's another big one that I was interviewing some of the racers about. Was like, it's harder than ever to get those links. So one of the changes was that the vendors keep some of their gear for a few levels now, which is great. If you find something good, you have more chance to buy it. But that means overall there's less new items available in the vendors. So getting that 3 link, getting that 4 link can be really hard. I've had racers say that they were stuck on a 2 link for a very long time as a result of that. So it's more important than ever to pay attention for those linked pieces of gear.
Sorry to interrupt, but Ziggy, look at Exile's layout. A huge corrupted
the
zone.
Vaal side area. A classic. The Vaal side area always throwing off layout. Brutal.
Yeah. I just wonder if anybody else, I mean, Exile is still in a giant lead, so I do wonder if the other players are going to run into the same issue, but Exile really should have known. That's going to cost them a lot of time.
Yeah, that's really tough.
As you mentioned, the vendor change is very frustrating. I mean, I got to say how it is. GGG.
But it's not good for the races.
You messed up with that one. I don't know.
I think it's one of those changes that's very good for the average player, but not so good for the racers who need those constant vendor refreshes to find very specific things that they need to really min-max. You know, these guys aren't killing every monster in the zone. These guys aren't engaging with league mechanics and things like that to get those items. They need the vendor refreshes. They need every little ounce of extra gear drop that they can get. And that's really tough. For sure. Exile going very low there in docks. But I am very excited though, because I did notice that both Titacula and Exile were picking up that dual wielding cluster that I showed earlier. So they're getting that attack and cast speed at the moment, and soon we'll be picking up that mastery for the 60% increased damage with a separate pair of weapons.
Look what Keldorn's doing. Keldorn. He's clicking the fire recipe. Despite the fact that you're going to be using a sword or an axe, you can still actually craft damage to spells onto it. So,
wow, the side area crafting recipe. There. Most of us forget that's even there, right? Who even goes into that area? That's very interesting tech. Like you said, you're missing out on the damage if you're using that sword and axe, but it's the fastest for the leap slamming. They're taking advantage of that 60% increased damage node that I showed off earlier, and they're getting that attack and cast speed, but you just can't really get damage for your actual spells. But a mastercraft like that, fascinating.
Yeah, the flat damage is just so valuable. It's how casters used to be so powerful in these events. And you can see that Exile is going for the exact same tech. I do believe that recipe costs a bunch of transmutes. I think 4? It's a pretty huge cost at this stage of the game.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to get 4 transmutes to rub together at this point, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and you're taking away from potentially other things too, right? You can craft resistances with that as well, as Exile will be the first person, yet again, this time entering Ebony Barracks. And let's see, is he going to be fighting Gravicious for the level 28 gem? He's getting ready for it. Yep, he's going to be fighting it. Okay, I really wonder what ability he's going to be landing on. Templar has access to a lot of different skills. Cremation, Armageddon Brand.
That lays out their strategy a bit then, because it tells us the minimum level that they're aiming to achieve at least. And they'll potentially be trying to rush to that level as quickly as possible, but, you know, taking advantage of the zones that give a lot of XP and skipping through the ones that don't, that's a lot of the strategy here.
Yeah, for sure. And I do wonder how much more they're going to be killing. I mean, you said that they want to be reaching level 28 as soon as possible, but is that really where they're stopping? Are they going to just, you know, if you're not killing monsters, you're not getting those Quicksilver charges, but you can depend a lot more on the movement from your Leap Slam. So I do wonder if that's exactly where they're going to be landing. I mean, I think they're going to want some more levels, surely.
Well, it's not just going to be that's the tough thing to say, right? Like in the past, you could have said, yeah, sure, they'll go through the bare minimum level, but the game is a lot harder now than it was 4 years ago. So getting through this piety kill is going to be brutal with, you know, without more to boost your single target damage. And then that Kitava kill as well. Innocence, oof. These are going to be some big hurdles for the players.
Yeah, I've just got done with a large amount of crafting on his gear. You could see him craft some resistances, but most importantly, that flat dispels onto his beautiful swords. Yeah, that's going to make a big difference. And you can see Killer really pulling Gravicious almost across the entire map as he drops low. Oof. Yeah, it's super sketchy. You get hit by anything, it becomes very tricky. And one of those tricky zones is going to be Lunaris Temple 2. You need a substantial amount of physical mitigation, or preferably both, or a substantial amount of fire resistance as well, as those tentacle miscreations tend to do a lot of the range damage to you. That's a little bit unavoidable because they turn now. They used to not turn. They would just shoot in the direction. Now they turn towards where your character is going.
Yeah, they've got new targeting software, and that's pretty scary. Hey, Rise, can we check out a new racer that is taking a top position currently? We have Garast, who was in rank 1 briefly and is at rank 2 currently. So if we could, I think we might have to. I'm gonna have to cut Havoc for now, I'd say. I'm sorry to say.
You think so? Okay, hold on, let me check.
Yeah, if we could get Garast up in here, I'd love to see where they're at, because they might well be at the same point as Path Exile and Keldon at the moment.
They're dropping low with just 490 HP.
Now, this is a name I don't know. Are you familiar with Garast at all? But look at this, though. They are at Piety right now.
I gotta say, I am absolutely not familiar with Garast. It does sound like something that...
Is it Tie 23?
You know, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe it's Tie 23, you know? Maybe he's trying to make us say a funny word or something, and we just don't even realize it that we're saying it now.
Look at that Piety kill. That was incredibly fast. Excellent management of the different phases, and then a huge Piety kill for Garast there. Exile also getting through there. And we've got Killer just about to reach his fight, and Keldon a little bit further behind, catching up right now.
Yeah, that was a really quick fight. You can see that those crafts make a big difference, so you really want to get those items. Let's watch Killer, as he's going to be fighting Piety. One time, I'm going to use the full screen tech. I mean, production will. Whoa! Okay, we're in. Tai's fighting.
He's doing it. He's got that flammability curse for a little bit of extra damage. Not all the players manage to get that socketed. You don't always have the sockets you need. But that little bit of extra damage is helping. That's a very fast kill. I'm actually really impressed with how fast these Piety kills are. I expected them to be a little longer. Pretty good. The damage that these folks are putting out is huge.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you can see the focus on Ignite as well for these setups, because despite the fact that I believe the caster recipe for either cold or lightning damages at Piety, players are not picking it up. They opted to take the extra time to go back to what the old laboratory used to be, and yeah, they pick up the Firecraft specifically for their weapon. So Ignite definitely putting out a lot of damage here, and yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see. Are they gonna be trying to ignite those big bosses? I gotta say, I'm pretty positively surprised about the amount of damage the players are putting out, as Keldorn doing a whole lot of freeze tanking right now. Okay, he's got it, but no flasks for Keldorn at the bottom left.
That is a part of the package for the Piety fight, is managing those portals, not getting in the ice form if you can help it, and fire form's okay if you're about to kill her, but preferably not for an extended duration. And Keldon does manage to close it out after a little bit of an iffy ice form there, but does manage to get through the fight. Nice little power spike after taking down Piety as well. Get those new passives, they can come back and get their skills. And what level are we seeing these players at the moment? I'll just check. 27 for Garast as of last count. Might already be 28 at this point, though.
Yeah, there is a delay, and a couple interesting notes about Piety. You can leave the fight to reset the portals, and another big thing is that you can't really deal with the portals as well as you used to be able to and prevent them from switching forms, because if you're using an ignite ability, those portals do not ignite. So you'd have to actually like hit them just a lot. And yeah, I don't think they just pretty much have to take it on the chin. Let's see how Garast is going to deal here with Dominus. He's got that cremation set up.
Level 28,
so
it's
not
online.
much has changed in this way.
That's a big damage improvement right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
Look at those ads going
utilize
down
the
real
ability too. Yeah, those ads are oh, he's going down real quick too. Again, super risky.
Does go both ways, unfortunately.
Yep.
Now Dominus coming down.
Well, that's another thing. When it comes to Dominus specifically, that lightning phase, you really want to face tank it with just about 50 lightning resistance. If you just click your potions, you shouldn't really be running into an issue where he's killing you. But with cremation, it allows you a lot of movement, right? All you got to do is really put down those cremations, and you can dodge all of the abilities. And the cremations stay up for 8 seconds whenever you cast them. And,
Exile going very low in his ad phase, taking a lot of damage from several of the ads at once there, but does manage to flask through it. And one of his flasks is like a medium flask right there, so he's struggling a little bit on that flask loadout, as is Garast actually, with the smaller flask there. They do at least have one bigger one. That second phase, Dominus going down real fast on the cremation. Very cool. Not as fast as the TIE 23 instant explosion turn around and go straight through the door. The classic moment. I think that solidified his legacy, but still pretty dang fast.
Yeah, I can't believe Garast even looked at the items. Pathetic. Nothing TIE 23 would do.
That was the thing. He was out the door.
Totally not TIE 23 this guy's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Second phase coming down. Titakill entering his ad phase. No, he's done with his ad phase. Dominus is down basically by the time he does his first channel of lightning. Very good looking single target here. These folks have definitely worked out the right setup for killing these bosses. Ooh, Exile going very low with the bleed.
Whoa, Exile! He's gonna die.
He dodged it. He dodged it. Only just barely.
He didn't die.
He didn't die.
But he's gonna have to rerun entirety.
I mean, he saved
the whole thing. He's
standing still at least. At least, I think he made the right call in that situation, because he was going to die a fraction of a second later, and then he would have also had to stand in town for a minute. So he dodged the minute, but the huge run back is definitely a huge upset for Exile.
That is so much time, and you can see Exile even running past a Regal, otherwise incredibly rare and valuable item at this stage of the game. He just runs past. He's trying to save as much time as possible, but this Dominus kill, frustrating, I'm sure. I mean, you can almost hear the yell that he let out as he had to log out.
He tries to find a more efficient route as well to make up some of the lost time, but ends up on stuck on a few extra monsters there. But that's got to be very upsetting, and you know that's the sort of thing that can definitely put you a little bit on tilt. So if he can manage the emotions and keep himself calm and try to work his way back into it, but that is definitely it's a solid minute lost in travel time alone. But at least he dodged that standing still in town, though.
Yeah, I mean, either way, he would have had to respawn in town, so he'd have to do the run back. I mean, even now, dealing with this fight can be a little bit tricky, because as you re-enter the fight, you're going to have to deal with that rain. And yeah, Exile in his frustration, he knows he needs to save time, doesn't even look at the items. He just has to go now. He's so far behind. I mean, pretty much everybody besides Keldorn, who's really hasn't had a very fortunate Act 3 so far, has managed to beat out Exile. As Garast, I hope we're pronouncing his name correctly, is going to be the first person to enter the Mines level 2.
Yeah,
running into a corruption zone again.
Yeah, that's again classic. The Vaal side area often messing with zone layout reads. It's really hard to dodge. Even the really experienced racers fall for them all the time, because when they generate, they add a little bit extra to the map that's not usually there, and that can be easy to misread.
Apparently his name is Gura Step on Me when translated, which means that it's 100% TIE 23. I have no longer any doubt. This is not a coincidence.
You reckon? You reckon?
I mean, listen, it is unusual that there's somebody who I'm not super duper familiar with. I mean, to be fair, you do want to be on a new account. So even though there are players that we are familiar with, the names of their accounts, we aren't. for instance, I believe the Havoc is Jimmy G Buckets, which, you know, isn't the brown man that I know.
While we were distracted, though, it seems we've had an unfortunate situation for Keldorn, who went down and is currently standing still in town as he waits for the 3, 2, 1 countdown before he can continue. So, our first on-screen death there. I didn't see exactly what he went down to there, though.
That's going to make it very tricky, and it'll be increasingly more difficult to keep up with who is at the front now as players are getting less and less XP, although they're still keeping up with XP now. I do got to say that. Keldorn, wait, where he died in Aqueducts? Oh, wow. That's
we might be able to get a clip here in a moment so we can see exactly what happened. We do have the technology. The replay technology.
It's so hard to keep up with all this action right now. You can see, maybe if you followed the previous races in the past, there used to be skips for the Reso's Dream. In the bottom right, Gurast is currently fighting some of the mobs that you would typically skip in the past. You can still do that, but now with the tools that he's got available, he's going the wrong way. Where is he going? Gurast, where are you going? What's going on here?
Is he... Question mark?
No.
What the?
Oh no! Oh no!
How does this happen?
Is it tight? Is he pretending?
Is this a fake out?
This layout is always the same. You go to the left. You never go top.
What happened?
And now
there?
It's two little things going to the
Second
top
guess,
and keep going
maybe?
left. Yeah, he knows it. He knows it. He recognizes their layout now. What happened?
Yeah. I feel like that might be flexing. I don't know. Surely not. I mean, you wouldn't. This is an ExileCon qualifier race. Surely.
What if he's listening to the cast? He knows. He knows we've detected him.
Maybe it was. Maybe it was second guessing. I don't know. It seemed a bit too obvious, though, didn't it? Very suspicious. We apparently have the Keldorn rip clip we could bring up on the full screen if you want, Rise.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just let's take a second look if anybody's doing anything in particular. I don't know. I think we're good. Keldorn rip coming up in Aqueducts. Wow, what a surprising zone to die in. Typically you'd be skipping a lot here.
Yeah, there's not too much that'll catch you off guard here. Getting stuck on a pack can just happen at any point. The freeze strong box. Oh no. Oh, the risk. That is unfortunate.
The juicy XP, but again, this is not the trash can strat that Ty23 would go with. You know, Ty doesn't open boxes. Too dangerous. And you can see why, right? He had the option to log out, didn't opt to go for it. But yeah, maybe he felt like he was behind on XP and he needed to catch up. These zones tend to be really tricky. I really don't know what level they're going to be going for. I gotta say, they are XPing like usual. Typically, it's very important that you are level 31 prior to entering mines, and then you are level 33 prior to entering belly. And so these guys are still XPing. They're still going for it. They're still getting as much as possible and keeping up those Quicksilvers. So I do wonder when that XP threshold is going to happen. Apparently, Exile did the skip.
Yeah, he's doing everything he can to catch up after that upset earlier. He's doing the skips. He's saving huge amounts of time. He's going to try. But meanwhile, though, we have Gura taking out Duresso and already in Calm side, and Tatakilla in Calm side as well. Did Tatakilla do Duresso already? I missed that.
I am uncertain. Sometimes it really depends on the player. Sometimes you're going to be picking up the Duresso waypoint and immediately leaving because the zones... Yeah, the amount of XP that you're getting from either one of these zones is very important. The zones after the first one for each Duresso and Comb are going to be one level higher. So you want to be running those first zones as they are level 37 first, and then get the waypoint, go to the other zone, and then deal with the level 38 zones. Again, another indicator that they're really trying to maximize their XP as much as possible here.
So we saw in the bottom right on Guru's screen, they went towards the Lava Fall, but they don't have the right skill package for this Lava Fall skip. I don't know if it's just like a, oops, yeah, right, I can't do that. But there is a classic skip in this zone that can save you a lot of time when you go up to the Lava Fall and use like Smoke Mine or Lightning Warp or Blink Arrow to jump up the Lava Fall. But I don't think that can be done with Leap Slime or Frostblink.
Yeah, you can see that Keldorn's got that Lightning Warp on his bar. I do wonder, people mentioned that Exile was doing the skip, and I do believe that we missed it. Maybe we can get a clip of that, so just so you guys know exactly what we're talking about. These skips tend to save a tremendous amount of time, but they do also cost you a lot of XP as you're not really killing those monsters. So you got to make sure that if the skip is available to you, because it's not always there, you're not going to be falling behind on XP.
Yeah, Titacula taking down Calm very quickly there. Calm basically just stood there and went, whoa, and that's it. Kura also taking down his kill, but did we see Titacula split both sides though? Is he going back to Duresso's side now? Yeah, so he has to do the second half of Duresso's side now. So he is a little bit behind as Guras goes into the belly of the beast.
Yeah, and I'm watching the XP chart right now. And I gotta say, there's a big gap between these players, as it is Garast, Tai, I'm Exile, I believe it will be Havoc, and then Keldorn at level 30. Next player being level 27. And this is really, this is one of the most difficult. If you want to keep XPing, and these players are getting level 33, Garast just barely got it as he entered Belly, which is pretty much perfect. Yeah, that really is going to show that in Act 4, if you can't handle your XP, you're going to fall really freaking far behind, as you are not doing those side zones in these formats. And I think we're going to be bringing back Havoc maybe, as he has seemingly outpaced Keldorn, at least when it comes to progression.
Yeah, so we've got a pretty clear 5 favorites now, duking it out for, well, not even 4 spots, just 1 spot. Although, something we haven't mentioned, that if it does come down to it, the best time across all 4 qualifiers will be the deciding factor for someone who might need to take up a slot, for example. So times are important here, and players are going to be trying to get their best possible times as that, for, you know, just for that insurance policy.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting because it's across all of the races. It's not from that particular qualifier. So let's say that Exile wins this one, and he's unable to go to the event. The player from any of the qualifiers with the fastest time will be eligible to go instead of them. And if you remember what happened with the previous ExileCon, Tai23, despite the different formats, not only did he win ExileCon, he also won every single one of the qualifiers. The only reason why other players were eligible to go was because they would take 2nd place in a qualifier past the first one after Tai23. So I really wonder with Gurast here if some funky business isn't happening right now, where, you know, maybe they're not even gonna, if they win, maybe they're not even gonna show up. I really wonder.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we see in the coming weeks. But I'm Exile getting another unfortunate layout mishap on the way to his DJ Piety. But losing a little bit more time there, unfortunately. But still doing quite well. Titacula also simultaneously in that fight. Havoc trying to catch up as he heads towards his Calm fight. We see the trio coming up for Gurast. No skip. We did see. We did have a clip of the skip though. You want to bring that up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Exile's, I mean, we're gonna be. Yeah, we have a moment. Sure.
Yeah,
real quick, let's show it before the Dominus fight. This is exactly where you want to be. You position yourself correctly. It looks simple. It looks smooth. That's because Exile makes it so. It's kind of not simple. Perfect. It's not smooth. Yeah, it's pretty pixel perfect depending on like where you're going to be standing. And these layouts are always different, so you really got to adjust yourself quite well. And depending on the ability that you're going to be using, it's going to be harder or easier. But Lightning Warps, definitely a super tricky one.
Yeah, you can do that about twice in that zone sometimes, and you skip basically more than half the zone. It's a huge zone as well, so you can save a lot of time on that.
Yeah, and that's a big part of a reason why you really got to be managing, because for the second skip, everybody's got it available, and obviously these guys are on a fixed seed. But the first skip, the really big one, is about a 10% chance that you're going to be getting it. And if you're not prepared for that skip, even though it's available to you, you might not be able to take it just because of XP, as Gurast is going to be fighting Chevrons, or sorry, already took down Chevron, and now we'll be heading on over to Malachi. A very difficult fight, very tricky, because it uses all elements. It's not like Dominus, where you can really get a bunch of lightning resistance and face tank much of the fight. You gotta worry about lightning, you gotta worry about fire. Those traps on the ground, they have 50% chance to crit you, and they're fire and lightning, they can ignite you. It's a very volatile fight, so he really has to make sure that he's not going to be getting hit here, not getting stunned.
I have to say, though, I'm Exile with the phenomenal catch-up here.
Yeah.
Like, how is he there at the fight? after that sidetracking and everything like that. But look at him. He's there, simultaneous. Nuts.
Well, that's the thing, right? Potentially he's sacrificing something to keep up. Could it be XP? Could it be gear? Maybe he's not sacrificing anything and he's just that good. I don't know.
Maybe one level behind, but yeah, that's not too big a deal at this point. Tatakiller also not too far behind on his first phase, but second phase begins for Grass and ExileCon almost in unison as they work on taking down that first heart, almost side by side. I love to see that. I love to see a perfectly in sync little race competition here. Exile again, a relative newcomer, and Grass a mystery player potentially.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, absolutely. Again, Exile is somebody that everybody's familiar with, especially when it comes to like long format races. But he was somebody who started playing in Metamorph, so just a couple years ago, right after ExileCon, and yeah, he's been working super hard to become one of the best players that PoE has ever seen. And yet again, right now, taking first Dominus and showing to everybody, this kid's got it. He's got it.
He's done it. He's overtaken Gurast. Nutty. Especially with those big sidetracks. I mean, we did see Gurast run backwards in that zone for some reason. And maybe that cost him.
Yeah, but who knows? If it was BM, you know, what if that's going to make all the difference? That was a very sussy read on that zone. I don't think...
Very strange.
Yeah, that really shouldn't be happening to anybody, especially somebody who's really first in this race here. It looked a little bit BM-y. I don't know.
Maybe someone in his chat was like, yo, a divine dropped in that corner over there. You missed it. Go back for it.
Yeah,
I mean... There's a mirror of Calandra. How could you do that?
It's a, it's a possibility. It's Exile telling him, oh, dude, totally go check out that mirror for sure. Right there.
A little DM mid-race. Tatakiller also with a phenomenal catch-up too. He's just now starting the zone that Exile is halfway through, and Gurast is also only just starting. So he's actually, stream out of syncness kind of aside, basically slightly ahead at this point.
Yeah, I mean, different players are going to have different strengths. There are players who excel in Act 1. Somebody, for instance, who's an incredible Act 1 player is going to be Pack HC. But then he has a real problem dealing with the next zones, right? And that's really where that preparation in Act 1 comes into play. And so some players are going to perform really well in different acts. Some players are going to perform really well when you get to XP really efficiently. Some players are going to do really well with layouts. Act 4 tends to not be very layout complicated, but something like Act 3 can cost you a lot of time if you just go in the wrong direction. Act 5 tends to be super duper simple. You can pretty much go anywhere you want and you always know where you're heading. You're not going to be wasting a whole lot of time there. So if these players are so close to each other, what's it going to boil down to? How much mobs they're killing? How much mechanical skills going on here? How good their single target is? How well did they prepare for these boss fights? Is anybody going to die? All of these options are a real possibility.
It's also super interesting to see how, while there are some small differences, how similar the overall strategy has come out here. Despite all the players being super secretive in their practice. Players were not sharing what they were doing, and yet through, a vast amount of testing, have come up with a pretty similar take on things.
Jeez, Gurast dropping so low, Ziggy. I don't know. This is looking really spicy. I'm surprised about the amount of mobs that both players are still killing. Honestly, especially with Exile, only one Quicksilver that he's running right now. Same for Gurast. This is a lot of killing. Also, Exile using a 5th flask. I gotta say, I was sure that he's gonna go for the big 4-flask BM. But no. He has too much respect for the competition, I think.
One could say the classic 4 flasks that Tie 23 channeled in the ExileCon race.
It's become a real thing.
Who knows? Secret strategies. I will say Gurast is probably not Tie 23, I'm hearing. But perhaps channeling some of Tie 23's spirit, some of that racing energy here, maybe a rebirth here. But it's awesome to see a relative mystery player put on such a strong showing like this, kind of leading the pack, having one little upset, but still up there. And then Exile, Exile also being a relative newcomer as well.
Usually it's pretty easy to tell players apart. because different players who are at the top of the ladder have a very distinct playstyle. It has been a very long time, and players have evolved a lot. And, you know, the strategies are different. So it's harder to tell than it used to be. But Garas does not play like Tide 23, I think. But, you know, Exile is not looking a whole lot of Exile-y either. He would be the sort of player that would have a very volatile playstyle, and we've seen a little bit of that as he's fighting Innocence now with that previously tricky Dominus fight that cost him so much time. But yeah, he's very steady. He used to be very speedy, very mechanical, very fast going, and every now and then he would, you know, get hit by something and fall over. Here, it really doesn't feel like that's happening. He really feels in control right now. And yeah, all he needs is to beat out the other player by just a little bit. And he knows that, so he's staying ahead as really only Tide Killer is close.
Yeah,
Tide Killer is really close.
Yeah, he had a Exile had a Val side area mistake again in the zone clear, but still got 2 Innocents and just a little bit ahead of Tide Killer. But Tide Killer's catch up here is insane. I think this has been a huge comeback story for Tide Killer after previous ExileCon. He's been practicing like nuts and was feeling very confident, and I think he's showing that now. Maybe like not super smooth in the early game there, but I think he's really coming into in fine form here.
Yeah, it's been really incredible to watch Exile as a player, you know. He's really evolved this game so much. Somebody who's been playing a lot with the likes of Ben, who I know that a lot of people were hoping to see at this event. Ben did say that he's probably not going to practice until he knows what the best strategy is, and then he's going to be practicing. But really, Ben used to be a player who is a little bit slower, but would perform really, really well overall. And Exile used to be really fast, but then he would kind of like run into those little bumps. And it seems like these two players, having played together so much in recent times, they've really merged their playstyles, and now they've got, both of them really have the best of the two worlds, where they're fast and they're really in control the whole way through. And you can really see it from Exile. Like, he is going to be the first one to take down Innocence, first one to enter Torched Courts, and everybody else is struggling to keep up.
Seeing very clean Innocence fights here. Just some lasers. Haven't seen any of the ball phases yet, which is fortunate. And pretty much phasing the boss fast enough that they only do that one attack, which is ideal.
Oh no. Garast. He logged out and had no waypoint. I saw him skip the Innocence waypoint, and he abandoned ship. He's done. Oh no.
I think I'm on a little bit of a delay. I just saw it. Oh my god, my stream is slightly delayed. That is brutal. Oh no,
yeah,
it's such a good showing. That is.
Yeah, he was second on the ladder and everything. Okay, so we've got. I mean, Keldorn is actually the next player in line. Let's go take a look at how he's doing. I do wonder, is that just XP or hold on? Oh, wait, I'm watching the close call from Keldorn. Hold on. Production, come on, get it together. What are you doing? What do you mean, Rice? Excuse me?
There we go. Come on. What an upset, hey? Such a fine showing, taking first place for a lot of it, hanging out in second, kind of dropping to third, but still with a very strong possibility of taking that win. But, you know, sometimes you have a moment and you think, I'm done. Emotional.
Man, I'm watching every single player get baited by that early left turn in the Chamber of Innocence, and they're running into the same corruption zone over and over and over. It just happened for Havoc.
They all got it.
Man, but we're getting close to the finish line here. Again, only #1 matters for this one, guys. So Exile on the rooftop, very close to Kitava, but Tide Killer nearby. He's almost there. It really is going to come down to the wire. We're going to have to see how prepared are they, how much damage are they doing, how good is their movement. Exile tends to do really well under pressure, tends to know that if he's in the lead, he holds that lead. I want to say that he doesn't catch up that well, but oh my god, did he catch up in this event.
Exile, with quite a few missteps in the early game, getting to Kitava first is a very strong possibility for a win, barring any particular upsets here. Tide Killer just trying to catch up now and starting his fight, but he's one phase behind. And like you said, first is everything in this race. If you're not first, you're last. Exile
Normally, it
dodging the
would be easy
punch.
to full screen one of these players, but not over here. And you can look at their HP values. They've got 847 and 909 life. Any ability here from either the ads or Kitava will kill them. They're both hopefully leaving portals. I see a portal from Exile because you want to be entering that portal in case you die. You don't want to be rerunning this. But Titan Killer taking no chances. He knows he's behind.
Yep.
How much?
Exile portaling out, safety portal, but Titakula not opting to do the same thing there. He's got the portal there.
The portal's up. Yeah, it's the ad phase that's really going to be scary here.
Yeah,
no Granite Flask, nothing like that. They don't want to go to town. They don't want to pick it up.
That Flicker Strike guy hits like a truck there. Titakula does opt for the safety portal to refresh as well.
Oh my god, this is way too close. But Exile looking in control.
Yeah, I think he's going to do it. I think he's closing it out here.
I think that's got to be it. There you go.
There we have it. Exile closes out the race. Congratulations.
He's not celebrating yet.
He's
Hold on, he could die to the ground, Quantric style.
A lingering ground degen. What a way to go.
Oh.
He's done it. Huge round of applause for I'm Exile. Titakula looks like he's about to be closing his fight out as well. Only seconds behind, I believe. Does he have one more phase or is he done there? He gives a GG, Titakula with the good sportsmanship there. And was only a few seconds behind I'm Exile's race time as well. So super close ultimately, but huge congratulations to Exile on a phenomenal race. Still managing to close it out. Look at him. He is stoked.
The pop-off.
I love to see it.
The pop of the celebration, all of that. The
He's
emotions.
so enthused.
That's really why.
I love it.
Yeah, that's really why Exile's one of the best players to win these sort of events, because you can see the emotion, you can see the amount of work that he's put into this event, and you can tell that this means the world to him. And Titan Killer,
he's going to ExileCon.
Just like in the previous qualifiers, coming up a little bit short.
He's going to be repping in the ExileCon grand finale. And I'm super on board for that. I'm super excited to see it. So he's secured his place and looks super happy to have done so, which I always love to see. And I have to say, like, what a fine showing, because he had a few early upsets and it's easy to let that get under your skin. But he showed a lot of tenacity there, a lot of ability to like regulate those negative moments and still keep going. That's a good story to tell, that is.
Yeah, for sure. His catch-up was incredible. I mean, that was... I really don't even know what happened there. Because he lost, like, 3 minutes at least. I mean, actually, that logout made all the difference. Because if he didn't log out, if he did die, and he was at an inch of health, if he would have died there, Titan Killer would have gotten it. For sure.
It was so close. Titakula had such a strong showing as well. Also with a big catch-up. Super impressive run. And then we had that mystery player, Gurast, who looked set to win it for a moment there. But, you know, obviously had the big upset and just quit the game. Closed it down the stream. But I'll tell you what, if he can work through that and come back next week, because we will be doing another one in a week's time at the exact same time, folks. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you're there for that. Because we'll be seeing Titakula trying to take that top spot next time. We'll be seeing Gurast trying to take that top spot next time. Maybe Havoc work out a few of the little kinks that slowed him down here. We've got a few more players who are going to be battling out. If we had 5 players battling for top spot here, next week we might have 4 players battling for top spot.
Hold on, is that a beer? Is Exile celebrating with a beer? God damn. Okay.
Well earned. Well earned refreshment. Havoc and Keldorn taking down their Kitava. You'd love to see it. Close it out. Try and get the best run you can, possibly. Learn what you can. Study this race. Think about what mistakes you might have made. And in all the races, like I said at the start, this is a pretty raw race, you know, new strategies, lots of refinements. The players are going to be able to look at each other. I know Titakula wanted to delete his VOD. Unfortunately for him, most of it's on the stream here, so we might not be able to do that. But they're going to be able to learn off each other now that there's been this initial showing, and to refine these strategies a little bit more.
I know that this event in particular was very important for a lot of these players because, yeah, the first one really is the wild card, right? Like, how well will the other players do? I gotta say, I mean, at this point, it's just gonna boil down to hard work. somebody who's going to be practicing more than the other players is probably going to be taking the next ones. And it's really interesting also what kind of approach is Exile going to take for the future qualifiers. Is he going to be participating in the next ones? Is he going to search for the Tie 23 full domination of the qualifiers, only really allowing players, due to the rule set, to show up at ExileCon? I hope so, honestly. I think these live performances from him give him a lot of confidence for future events, and he's gonna need all the confidence that he can get if he wants to win ExileCon.
Yeah, there's no substitute for this like live pressure on practice like this. This is
right.
I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Exile racing in the coming weeks, because it is such good, valuable practice for ExileCon. You want to be top of your game in that like live actual setting. And there's a difference between practicing just by yourself and practicing an actual race. So I would love to see him again next week. But who will we see take the top place next and secure their spot at ExileCon? But huge congratulations once again to Exile for a phenomenal race showing. Very cool to see some of the new strategies taking shape. It'll be very interesting to see what sort of refinements we see next week as well. And I have to say, thanks very much for casting with me, Rise. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Ziggy. It was a blast, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to the next events. But I gotta say, I'm really happy that you know, Exile was the one to take this one, as I was kind of rooting for him a little bit. He didn't need my rooting, you know, he did it all on its own. But I'm really happy to see him, because you know that tends to be kind of the situation where there's all these amazing players, but they kind of things just don't quite line up. You could see that a little bit with some of the other players that were initially casting, such as Karn. An incredibly frustrating situation for him, running into some server issues and having all of those problems. As I think the race is done, so we might as well switch on over to our beautiful faces, I think. I don't know, as we close things off over here. And yeah, Karn definitely running into a problem. Exile running into a problem of recovering incredibly well. Seeing a NA player qualify makes a lot of sense, but I do hope that, you know, we're going to have a little bit of an EU showing from the person that I'm rooting for next, you know, non-biased casting. I think it's going to be Karn for me.
I really want to see Tai Killer take the top spot next. That's my if we're throwing bias into it, I would love. We actually have the potential to see some EU players this time around, which would be very cool to see as well. But he's got the backstory, Tai Killer, of the past ExileCon. He's got to go again, I think. Absolutely, I want to see that. So
yeah,
but who knows what we'll see next week.
Huge story. Again, a lot of people remember Tai Killer from the last ExileCon,
yeah,
but not a lot of people remember that Tai Killer ended up not being the person to qualify. So he's got a lot to prove here. He was at ExileCon, but that was because of a player drop-off and not a qualification from him. So I'm sure there's a lot on the line for him.
Prove. He's hungry.
Yeah, he's got a lot to prove. Right? Is he already in maps? I don't know yet. We're gonna have to wait for the next qualifier to find out.
That's what they say. We're getting times now as well, just to round us off. So I'm not Exile. I'm Exile. Came in at 1 hour, 10 minutes, and 35 seconds. Tai Killer at 1 hour and 11 minutes, so 25 seconds, only 25 seconds behind in the end. Keldorn at 1 hour, 14 minutes and 29 seconds. And only just slightly behind that was Havoc, which I think you said was Jimmy G Buckets, right? 1 hour, 14 and 51 seconds. So not too much gap between those. Close. Keldorn and Havoc kills were very close there, as were the Exile and Tai Killer kills. But there is a couple minutes to shave off for Keldorn and Havoc potentially there. And we might see we got that wild card that is Garast. I'm very interesting to see what they do next as well, because another mystery player, right? Last time we had a mystery player, they put themselves in the legends of Path of Exile racing.
Yeah, Tai 23 was so good, people thought that he was a cheater. They didn't even think that he's going to show up at ExileCon.
No one knew.
He had problems streaming, you know, there was always something funky going on. He really liked anime. He can't be good at PoE. And yeah, I mean, he was legendary for sure, and still is to this day.
I love the storylines, and I love that we're getting to develop some new ones here. So I absolutely can't wait for next week and the following qualifiers. And hopefully it won't be quite so raspy next week. Apologies, folks. What a time to get sick. But
hopefully the servers won't be as well. But also,
Yeah.
I guess to mention a couple other names, we've got FaZe, who ended up placing, I believe, fifth. I don't
Yep.
think that this is actually timed. I think it's the XP that I'm looking for. But a couple other notable names that you guys might know. There's FaZe, there's Fight Guard, there's Vocas. And yeah, we've got Karn, we've got
Done.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. Let's go.
Excellent.
Yeah, we've got some
Seeing a few other
real
names in
gamers in
there.
here.
And there was some talk that not necessarily everyone would be racing in this first one, which is an unusual strategy. So we might see some new people kind of join in for the next one now that they can practice a
Right.
bit more efficiently, having yoink strategies from the other races. I mean, it's
Yeah,
smart. It's smart.
I've heard that a lot, but it also shows a lot of confidence. You know, the player that I've heard about in particular is the name that I mentioned previously, Ben. I don't know how true this is. Ben tends to be an incredibly respectful player towards other players, but to think
Oh,
that, you know, he can just practice on a whim and win this, I gotta say, I can't wait to find out if he's actually going to be in the next one.
all right. Rise, I think that closes us out for today. Thank you very much for watching, folks. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope to see you again next week. Thank you, Rise. See you later, folks. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. See you guys later.